Hey friends, it's Dimitri with Nebraska Streetwear. Today I want to talk about when to raise prices for your clothing brand or whatever business that you're running. And I'll give you essentially 3 reasons why I think you can raise your prices. But before I begin the video, I will preface the entire video and say that in general you should avoid raising prices as much as possible. The reason why is because you should work backwards and figure out ways to become more efficient and more profitable, make quality go up and prices go down actually for you as the business owner. The way you do that is you figure out all of the waste that is swirling. There's mountains, piles, heaps of waste and inefficiencies that you are running in your business, and all that stuff is going on. You might not see it, or you do see it, but every day you should be focusing on improving all your processes and the way you do everything, and figure out ways to make manufacturing faster and cheaper, figure out ways to be more efficient at shipping. That's why I make so many shipping videos, because every single month I find at least 1 or 2 ways where I can cut down costs dramatically for shipping without reducing speed or quality for the customer. But that money basically goes in on the back end, and I don't have to necessarily worry about raising prices for the customer. And that's one thing that's important. You want to generally avoid it as much as possible. Now, that being said, I do think, and I have myself raised prices in the past when it was reasonable. And that's the one thing about raising prices. It has to be reasonable, and it also has to be justifiable. And I'll explain why. So for the reasonable part, if your customer is used to buying a t-shirt for $25, $28, $30, they shouldn't wake up the next day and that t-shirt is now $50, right? There is that's not a reasonable price increase, and it's not keeping in line with inflation or other business costs that are going along with your business. So that might be a really big turnoff for your customer, and it might crumble your business essentially. It's not really a good thing to do, and it's not justifiable. That is the reason why I have these 3 reasons listed here. It's because it has to be justifiable. Now, let's move on to that. What is one reason why you would want to raise your prices for your clothing brand? The biggest and best reason, I think, is quality. Now, there are a lot of ways that your brand's quality can go up without you actually spending money to do that. But when I talk about quality, what I mean by that is the actual quality of your clothing. So, when you're starting out, or if you are still using, let's just say you're using a really simple cotton blank that's heavyweight, it works fine, people like it, but it's not necessarily like the best cotton in the world, the best t-shirt, like a $50 to $75 t-shirt, right? I wouldn't say that I use like the highest quality t-shirts, because I'm not targeting that market segment of people that are more into like luxurious blanks and stuff like that. But if I did upgrade to a new blank or a new hoodie, I would definitely raise the prices, because the cost of those items is obviously going to go up. There's certain materials and cottons and other polyesters, all that kind of stuff, that they simply cost more to manufacture, and they might be rarer, they might be from a special part of the world, all that kind of stuff. I'll give you an example. Like, there's a really Japanese denim, a lot of it's handmade and it's really high quality, really famous. So something like that is obviously going to be worth a lot more than just a regular mass manufactured Levi's pair of jeans, right? So there's a reason why the price point is so much higher. So if you start your brand off and you use one blank, and then the next year you want to upgrade, and you think, and you've done some market research, and you know that your customers are going to like and purchase that new quality of t-shirt or hoodie or whatever you're trying to sell, it's definitely reasonable and justifiable as to why the price would increase. So if the quality of your clothing is being increased, that's a reason why you can raise your prices. Reason two is a brand overhaul. So this typically happens. It could happen any time of the year, but I've seen a lot of people do it during a season, at the end of the year, at the start of the year. They have a major brand overhaul. And what that basically means is that all the costs associated with that will cost a lot of money essentially. You might have a new website design, you might have a new logo design, you might move into a new warehouse, you might be hiring a bunch of people, you might be doing a lot of stuff in your brand, and your brand is going to look better. It's going to look better. It's going to have better quality in its overall image. But obviously, that stuff might actually cost a lot of money to do that, but it might be worth it in the long run because the overall image of your brand is going to increase and people are going to be like, wow, this is a really cool brand. It has a good image. I really like it. It looks professional, neat. So, the bigger your brand gets and you do those kind of brand overhauls, it does suck a lot of time and money to do that. So that's a reasonable and justifiable means for raising your prices if you have a major brand overhaul. Now, you can do this for basically very little or low cost, and you don't have to raise your prices. But if I did a major brand overhaul, I probably would bump my prices up, as my personal opinion, just because so many things are changing in the brand and customers might assume that the prices might increase a little bit. I've seen many brands do this. They would start out and their brand image, logo, design is kind of like not the best, but it's okay. And then they grow as a brand and business and, everything gets more expensive. They invest into equipment and manufacturing and employees and all that kind of stuff. And then they inevitably bump up their prices a little bit. But the customers, they see all of that and they see the quality and care that they put into their business, so they don't mind paying a little bit extra. The last reason, and the most obvious one, is yearly inflation. So, as you are aware, a lot of people, I guess, have been more aware of what inflation is the past year because we've had a rampant inflation in the country and worldwide because we're not really in the best economic times. But reason three is basically it happens every year. Inflation is always hovering around 3 to 4%, somewhere in between. That's like an average that you would expect for prices to increase for everything across the board. That does not really mean necessarily for like this strange kind of couple of years we've had, or certain goods. Certain goods might not increase at all and certain goods might skyrocket, but that's kind of a range where you can expect it to increase. Now, does it make sense to increase the cost of a t-shirt or a hoodie that you sell by 3 or 4%? Not really. That actually would look weird marketing that and on your website. Like you would have, let's say, like for instance, on my website, I sell t-shirts for $30. If I was keeping up with that inflation, I would raise it by, gosh, I can't do the math, but what, 50 cents or like 75 cents. So like adding those cents onto a baseline price that you already have doesn't really make any sense. It looks kind of weird. So what you could do to replace that, if you want to keep up with that standard of, yearly inflation, you might do a higher level inflation for yourself. So maybe if I was selling a t-shirt for $30, maybe the next year I would just do 31 or 32, some number like that, some solid number. Or I would go on the back end and raise prices on other things such as shipping, maybe raise prices on stickers or other goods like that. But that's something that you have to think about for your brand, what makes sense, what works, what won't drive the customer away. But yeah, those are 3 major reasons why you might raise prices, and I think they are appropriate to go off on. I'll explain how I raised prices for myself when I did my brand. So when I started my brand, I was selling t-shirts for $20. And the blank I was using was okay, but it wasn't the best standard quality, I guess, for the target audience I was targeting. And I remember that price, it went to like $24. The reason why I went to that is because I didn't raise my prices for a few years, I think. And I was also doing research at that time. If your price point is too low, it actually makes your brand look cheap. And a lot of t-shirt brands, clothing brands, streetwear brands, they're selling shirts for around $25 to $27. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go higher, but I'm still gonna be within that range. That makes sense. My brand was still young, so I didn't go like to higher levels like 27 or 28. Then I bumped that up to 25 because I think it was a better number overall than 24. I remember I went to $27 at one point, then 28, and now I'm at 30, and I've had that for a few years now. And I think I think the only way I'm going to be raising prices for me personally moving forward is reason 1 and reason 2. The reason why I'm not going to do reason 3 is because, like I said in the beginning of this video, I avoid it as much as possible. I've been just making my business way more efficient, running things way smoother, so I don't need to worry about that stuff. You know, that cost is covered by, you know, simply shipping stuff more efficiently, using, you know, cheaper materials for packaging that don't disturb the quality of the products itself, that kind of stuff. But I think for my next price increase, it will go to $32 to $35. If it was going to be 35, I would definitely, you know, have to have a better reason for justifying that. Like, for instance, right now I have like printed neck labels inside of the shirt, but if I went to 35, I would definitely have like woven sewn in labels. I would make sure that the t-shirt was like made in the United States. That's something I'm trying really hard to do, is find a really good, somewhat decently priced blank that's made in the United States. Once I do that, I'll definitely probably go up to this point. But I might even, along with that, I will make the price of shipping either stay the same for a few years or go down slightly to kind of balance that out a little bit, and not make, because going from 30 to 35 is quite a jump for a customer, I think. But most likely it will be around 32, and that will be probably in 2025, I'm gonna guess, unless this is also something I'm thinking of doing, is kind of doing a brand refresh and making my brand a little bit more solid and that kind of stuff. So I might go to this number sooner than 2025, but if I do, it'll be because of this reason. And if it goes to 35, it'll be because of this reason. So those are kind of my thoughts and opinions on when you should raise prices. In summary, I think you should avoid it as much as you can, but there are legitimate reasons for doing it. And if they are reasonable and justifiable, your customer will understand. If you still maintain fast shipping, you still have a good quality of product, and you still are a fun and interesting brand, your customers aren't going to run away. That's kind of the thing that a lot of people are afraid of. They're like, oh, if I raise the prices, are my customers going to run away from my brand? The short answer is no, they're not. Most customers, if they're loyal, if they always buy your brand year after year, they're still going to be buying it. If they're invested into the brand. So you don't really need to worry about that, unless, like I said, unless your prices aren't reasonable and justifiable. Like earlier, like I said, if you're selling a t-shirt for, you know, $30 and it goes up to $50, that makes no sense for your customer, and they would probably abandon ship on you. So yeah, that's when to raise prices. If you guys got any value of this video, if you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks.